Hey everybody, it is Saturday night and I'm finally taking a break from working on my waterfall project. We're starting out by looking at my 125 here just because the camera's going to wash out and do some funny things and I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look when we start filming it. So I want to talk about it a little bit before we actually start looking at it. Normally I don't do sort of as I go along real-time videos of projects I'm doing. I kind of wait and just show them when I'm done. There's an old proverb about watching the sausage being made, and this is kind of the same process. The behind the scenes is pretty ugly. It doesn't look anything like this is probably going to look when it's finished, and it may turn out to be a flop. It may not work at all, in which case I'll have shown everybody all this video and all this stuff and all this behind the scenes stuff, and I'll have nothing to show for it except a giant failure at the end of it. But that's how it goes sometimes, and you know, it's not necessarily a bad idea to know how the sausage is made. Just because you don't necessarily want to watch it all the time doesn't mean you don't necessarily want to know how it's made. So today we're going to look at what I've been doing. I built a giant framework out of PVC pipe. I kind of wish I'd used 3/4 inch, but I used 1/2 inch. I covered that today in chicken wire, and then I covered the chicken wire in a tarp. And then I've been working on covering it in spray foam. They actually ran out of the one type I was using, the lighter colored stuff, and then I had to go up and get more cans of the other stuff, which is this sort of yellowy color. This little area right here is the last little section I'm working on tonight, and then I'm gonna probably let it rest. Although I'm actually, now that I've said that, I might, it's kind of hard to see, I might work on getting some of this area, you know, filled in, that back wall in there. So here's the idea. Let's get up on the step stool. So the water is going to come in over here. It's going to flow out of a waterfall or up and out of a spring of some sort. This area here is a little bit of a basin. We'll have a fair amount of standing water in it, although you won't be able to see it from the ground. You'll be looking up at an angle, but I'll be able to have plants in it, whatever. It'll just be water there to reflect light, make noise, etc. Hopefully we're going to carve it out enough that the water is going to flow over this direction and it's going to sort of waterfall over on this end. And then as it does, I've created a little sort of disruption here, so we're going to get some splashing. It's going to kind of force most of the water this way, I hope. And then as the water flows down here and it's going to come back down to this end, we're going to get another sort of pool and basin here, and then we're going to get most of the overflow coming over right on this end. And you can see I've already sort of started building out right here where we're going to sculpt it and shave it out, and then this is where the water will flow over and it'll flow down into this bottom basin area. And then what I'm going to do below that, I'm not entirely sure. When I went out this morning, I got this tarp to do a liner. I've been wondering, I'd actually thought about getting a shower curtain liner, which is what this is, and it's made out of vinyl, and this stuff does not stick to it at all. Ultimately, it doesn't really stick to this very much either, but it does grab a hold of it enough that I can work with it. Like on this, for example, I was able to stick it to the back, which is just basically the tarp underneath of there. And once that hardens, I don't care if it sticks to it anymore. It'll be a hard shell there, and that's what I need it to do. This down here, it doesn't even stick to it. I couldn't really even sculpt onto it. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to complete it. The idea was to have one more sort of layer like this down here, but now I'm beginning to think I might just sort of sculpt sort of a central flow over and just have it flow right there into the tank, and then that would be the bottom, you know, and then this would be all we would be dealing with. So right now I've got, I've lost count, I don't know, 15 or 16 cans of the expandable foam into this stuff. It's really good stuff. I actually probably should shoot a video showing you how I apply it and how I work it on there, because you can sort of sculpt with it in a rough and ready sort of way. You can see how I've sort of, you know, built up the sides here and built up the edges. The idea is in the long run we're going to be able to take all this excess tarp and just cut it off and it'll just, you know, you'll see the edge of the thing. It's going to be painted. I'll have plants on it. It's going to look very, very different, if of course I can work it out the way I'm envisioning it. I can see this in my head now. I know what it's supposed to look like when it's done, and so far we're on track. I'm not unhappy at all with how this looks. In fact, I'm very happy with how this looks. And you know, as huge and big and bulky and ridiculous as it looks, so far it's not that heavy. It's one 8x10 tarp, one shower curtain, one 25-foot roll of chicken wire, and, you know, 15 cans. Put a case of spray cans, because once you spray it on there and all the solvent and everything evaporates out of it, and you know, it's the weight of the can is nowhere near the actual weight of what's left behind once that foam dries. So you know, you're looking at 10 or 15 pounds worth of weight on it. So the 1/2-inch PVC is holding up well enough in a longitudinal way. You know, the uprights are holding up. I just probably need to strengthen it a little more. I don't know how well you can see how wobbly that is. So we're getting a little bit of side to side. I can brace it later in the back, but I've got plans for the back. Let's go look at that now. Let me move my stool out of the way here. So this is a huge thing, but it's not wasted space. We come back here, and now I've got all this space underneath of here. So what I'm planning on doing now is taking this really bright light, which is not what I want. This is supposed to recapitulate, you know, woodland, foresty, etc. You don't generally get sunshine blasting on that 12 hours a day. I'll have a bunch of algae and nasty growth, and I won't have all like the ferns and mosses and stuff I'm envisioning. So I'm going to build another LED. It's just going to be a single cob, and that's going to light this whole entire area, as little bit of light as it's going to produce. And I'll grant you, it is going to be one of those good Cree CXB 3590s, so it's going to be a really intense cob, but it's only going to be one of them to light this entire area. And I may even put some, you know, dangling, branchy kind of stuff in it, just to create a little false dapple sunlight and shadow effect or something like that. I don't know, but we're going to reduce the light on this side to make it more sort of a woodlandy feel, in which case this is going to be seriously overkill. But it's the time of year when I'm bringing all of my plants and everything inside, and I always like to tinker around with overwintering outside plants and garden plants in the summer and everything. So I can simply darken these sides here so it won't overwhelm the fish room, mount my LED under here shining down this way, and I can put all of my plants under here and do my, you know, plants being overwintered back here, and then that'll basically utilize all this space as well. So I'm actually kind of excited. I felt like a kid in a fort back here today. I felt like I built my own little tent, my little hiding place back here. So it was pretty neat. I don't know if I'm going to be using the philodendron and all that kind of stuff. You can see all the rocks I got piled up. I've been trying to walk all over this. I never clean anything up. I've actually been walking over this and stepping over it, and, you know, working around this bench. Of course, I had to move all this stuff by myself and get all of the, you know, tanks moved over here and out of the way so that I could continue working on this. But I don't know if I want to use that philodendron and garden plants that I've got out of my yard so much as I might want to just, you know, if I'm doing this, let's do it right. You know, let's do plants that I would naturally find around here. I mean, I can find all kinds of mosses and little ferns, and, you know, I mean, we can put little small sapling dogwood trees and azalea bushes or whatever in little planters and stuff, and, you know, that can always get moved around and changed up. And this is going to be, you know, this has got a lot of potential. I can do a lot with this once we get it up and running. So I've got to finish getting all of the physical aspect of it done. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with down here. I don't know exactly how we're going to finish it. You know, I don't know where the actual flow into the tank aspect of it's going to be. I also forgot to mention, I built this with the idea in mind that this can also easily go over a 40 breeder. It's the right height and it's the right width. that it would fit around it and over it and everything. So I can interchange a 20 long or a 40 breeder with that if I wanted to do bigger or more elaborate. The $1 a gallon sale is usually coming up around this time of year, so slapping an open top 40 breeder on the ground right there might not be terrible idea, although that's really a terrible idea. I really shouldn't think about buying any more fish tanks right now. Anyway, my wife still hasn't even seen this. I think she's going to have a nervous breakdown when she actually sees this thing. So hopefully I will be able to get it up and together, and it'll look pretty by the time she sees it for the first time. And again, I normally would do that for all of my YouTube viewers as well, but I thought at least in one case you get to see some sort of, you know, seeing the sausage being made here and seeing all the ugly behind the scenes. So let's walk back around this way, because I can't get out that way. I got myself all blocked in. So, of course, when I put the tarp on, actually, you know what, let's go right back here again. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. When I put the tarp on and it was just a chicken wire mesh, I put some foam down and I put it on all of the, I don't know how well it's coming out, how dark it is, but I put it on all of the seams and all of the pieces of PVC and everything, so the idea would be that the tarp would sort of stick to it and get stuck to it. And it was kind of difficult to get unfolded by myself and thrown on there and flopped over it, you know, and it was getting this stuff stuck to it, and I was getting that all over my arms and stuck to me, and it was a real pain in the butt trying to finally get it on there. When I finally got it on there, I realized I put the tarp on sideways, so that's why we've got so much overhang. It's an 8x10 tarp, and while, you know, I only changed it by 2 feet, it stops like right here. That extra 2 feet would have given me enough to come over and hang down. So now I've got this vinyl all the way up underneath of the tarpaulin here, up underneath there, and then over about halfway across this top section here, and it goes up and over the sides on both sides. So it's a real serious overlap. And I sprayed a bunch of Loctite spray adhesive all over the tarp and the vinyl and everything, again, for whatever that's going to do. I don't know how well it will stick to vinyl, but it should provide at least some tackiness to keep it from just sliding out. And then, of course, once I've got all this foam and everything built around it, just the physical structure of it should hold it all together. But it is overlapping the way roofing tiles are overlapping. You know, the top part goes over top of this bottom vinyl sheet. And the other idea is that with it being clear like that, if I do just have sort of a waterfall effect and I got a tank down here, I don't have to worry about backsplashing. I can just cut the vinyl or put the, you know, just tuck the vinyl into the tank, and it may not look beautiful, but in the long run, the idea is going to be that I'm going to have some sort of creeping Jenny or some sort of plant growing in here nice and vigorously, and I'll just have a cascade of plants hanging over, and then the water will actually be flowing through the plants, and I won't get so much splashing as I will just sort of the water running down the plants and running across the ferns and splashing a little bit into the fish tank when it gets to the bottom. So I'm really excited about this. It's going to be really, you know, well, it's either going to be a really big disappointment and a lot of work, or it's going to be awesome when I'm done. But ultimately, even if it's a failure and it doesn't work, you know, I'll admit it's a lot of money I've spent on buying all these cans of stuff and buying the tarp and buying all the PVC pipe and everything. But I've had a lot of fun doing this, and it's also, it's a good outlet for my creativity. I just like doing this kind of stuff. It's fun to tinker with, and it's been another rainy Saturday afternoon, so I've spent the whole day down here just messing around with this. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. You definitely don't want to miss how this is all going to turn out in the long run. And of course, I am going to get back to doing, you know, other stuff with all my other fish tanks. This crab tank's going to evolve into something. That tank's probably going to go away, and the fish that are in it, just a bunch of guppies in there, will get spread out to other tanks. That was my red claw crab tank, but since that tank is now here, I don't really need this tank anymore. So who knows, maybe if we've got, you know, some deep enough pools of water going on here, we can throw some little guppies or something in there, and we can actually have some little live activity swimming around in there. Who knows? But like I said, make sure you're subscribed and you won't miss any of that or anything else I've got coming up. I'm still going to call this my garden tank area for the time being, even though it's shaping up to be more like a waterfall. But there you go. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you real soon on the next one.